In this video, I'm going to show you how I make an axe throwing target. This is a pretty simple build. You only need basic tools and it can be a lot of fun once you're done. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I share 2 tips that's going to make this build a whole lot easier. And if you enjoy projects like this that are axe throwing targets or table builds or scrap projects, have a look at my channel, give a subscribe, because you never know what's coming up next. So for the frame of this build, I'm going to use all pressure treated lumber. Since this is going to be outside all year long, I need to withstand the weather conditions. The target itself, I'm going to use a pine. It's a wood that's not too hard, so the axe is going to stick, but it's not super soft that you're going to have to replace the boards too frequently. For my base, I'm going to cut 2 pieces at 7 feet and 2 pieces at 4 feet. Next, I'm going to cut my 2 upright pieces to 88 inches. While I'm at the miter saw, I'm going to cut down all my back pieces as well. I need 5 4-foot sections, so I'll be left with 1 extra 4-foot piece that I'll use later. Now, since you're going to be throwing axes at the target, you obviously want a good sturdy base on the back side to prevent it from tipping backwards. But you want to leave a little bit out front too, because you don't want it to be able to tip forward very easily either. So I'm going to put about 6 feet of this base behind the target and a foot out front. So I'm just going to measure in 12 inches and screw my base down across like this. And this is where I'll have my vertical pieces sitting up against. And on the back side, I'm just going to come to the very end of the 2x4s. With my 1 leftover 2x10, I'm going to cut it right down the middle, and I'm going to use this as my stretchers for my frame to get everything started. So for this target, I want my bullseye to be 5 foot from the ground. So I'm using 4-foot target boards, which means 2 feet of that is going to be the center. So I'm going to put this board 3 feet from the ground. The top will be 3 feet from the ground. Then the center of my 4-foot board will be 5 feet from there. Now, I also want these vertical frames to sit inside the base we've already made. So to do that, I just took a cut off piece of the 2x4 and I'm going to overhang So now I got the frame slid down to where it's going to go in the base, so I've just got to screw it here until I get the angle pieces on for the extra support. You can't see here, but I actually just have a scrap piece of wood going across the top that I just tacked in there to keep everything a little more stable while I played with it. So I'm going to go ahead and screw the base in and then get ready to cut my pieces for the braces. For my braces, all I've done is cut one end at 45 degrees. And I'm going to set it down here to see where it lands up here. I'm going to make a mark. And I'm going to cut 2 pieces just like that. All that's left to do now on the frame is the backing boards. And I've already got them all pre-cut, so it's just a matter of stacking and screwing them. Now with my last 2x4, I'm going to cut it in half for 4 feet. Use it for the ledger board on the bottom. I'm going to make sure it's nice and level because every time you replace a board from here on out, you're going to be using this as your reference. So now it's time to install the actual target boards. Now I'm fortunate enough to have a neighbor that's got a wood mill, so I got some nice rough sawn pine here. The customer I'm building this for, probably not so fortunate, so they're going to replace these boards down the road with wherever you get the big box stores. So I've milled this down to meet the same sizes as the big box store. That way I can put a reference mark around this, and should they ever want to replace the boards, they can do it easily. So to make the jig for the lines, I grabbed a piece of wood that was kind of ruler shaped, rectangular, made sure it was square, and I went online and just did a little research to find out what certain leagues were using for their regulation markings. Then I marked out for each hole and pre-drilled them. This is where the marker is going to fit in to make the lines. When you're measuring for these holes, you want to make sure you're going to measure from the point that you're going to screw it to the board and not the actual edge of the piece of wood. So now I'm just going to find dead center of the target so I can attach my stencil and make the lines. The marker did a pretty good job, but I could tell no matter how slow I went or how careful I was, I'd have to touch some lines up after. I'm going to put 2 upper kill shots on this, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but I have a straight line going down through my bullseye that I had used for a reference when I found center. So from that straight line in the hole, I'm going to make a mark out 45 degrees, and I will be able to see that mark through these holes to help me place my kill shot. The small kill shots were actually kind of difficult to do with the large marker, so I just resorted to doing an outline and coming back to touch them up later. Then, just to finish everything off, I found an old scrap piece of PVC pipe, used it as an outline, and put some red paint in for the bullseye. And there you have a fully finished axe throwing target. Now, I was going to show you clips of me using it and testing out, but I realized I don't have an axe to throw or any skills, so I just left it alone. So that build went pretty good, better than I expected actually, but it's because I was reading about the game and stuff before I even started. So along with that too, you get confused. There's different sets of rules for different leagues. So I ended up just talking to the customer and decided which rule set they wanted to follow and went from there. It can be anything from where your kill shots are to the width of your lines, but lucky for me, this customer was not an avid thrower. They wanted it for fun. They were just like, yeah, just get as close as you want. So that took a little bit of stress off. By far the best thing I found on the internet was a template for the lines. Now, people sell these, they're kind of expensive, but I found a drawing that had the measurements and the line width, so I just made my own template here and drilled it the width of the line I wanted. In this case was 22 millimeters. So that was a big help. The next thing I did that really helped me out was do a little bit of research on the markings themselves. So this is a paint marker, but is an oil-based paint marker, not an acrylic. When you do axe throwing, you're purposely going to wet the boards. It helps the axe stick, and you don't want all your lines to bleed and run. Now, the only thing I would have done different was I would have bought another one with a finer tip. These are real thick tips. So I would have liked to actually start my outline with a thinner one, and it would have been easier to touch up little spots I missed too. But all in all, it turned out pretty good.